I am going to tell you about the worst year of my life. Not because I want you to feel bad for me. I am way past needing that. But because the worst year of my life is when they found me. And if I describe it clearly enough, what it actually felt like to be in it, what it does to you on the inside, then you will understand exactly why what they did worked, and why it would work on almost anyone who stays in that place long enough. In about 14 months, I lost my job of 11 years, my marriage ended, and I went from seeing my kids every day to not seeing them at all for close to 5 months. I am not going to sit here and tell you whose fault any of that was. It does not matter for what I am trying to tell you. What matters is that those 3 things happened close together, and what that combination does to a person, what it actually does on the inside, is the whole reason this story goes the way it goes. I want to talk about this for a minute because I think people who have not been through something like it picture it wrong. They picture rock bottom as this dramatic moment, like you are at zero and you know you are at zero, like there is a clarity to it. It is not like that. It is not dramatic at all. It is just flat, tired. The part of you that normally weighs things, checks things, the part that goes, okay, wait, does this actually make sense? That part gets worn down. Not broken, worn. Like a hinge that has been used too many times, and now it does not quite catch the way it used to. And when that happens, you become easy in ways you would never normally be easy. Not stupid. You are still yourself. You can still think, but the friction is gone. Someone says something that sounds good, and instead of your usual, okay, but let me sit with that, you just feel, yes, finally. Because the gatekeeper is too tired to do the job right now. That is the state. That is what they look for. Not necessarily somebody completely destroyed. More specifically, somebody who still has something going on, still has something to offer, but whose guard has been down long enough that the warning signals are not firing the way they should. I had been in that state for about 8 months before they showed up. I was still functioning, still getting up, still going through days, but I was running on something way below what I should have been running on. And when you are running that low, the first person who pulls up alongside you and seems to actually see you, it does not matter what they want. It just feels like rescue. A bar, Tuesday afternoon. I know how that sounds. I was not someone who went to bars on Tuesday afternoons before that year. I had a life, a routine, things I was supposed to be doing. The Tuesday bar was a symptom, not who I was. I was not drunk. I was not even trying to get drunk, honestly. I just did not want to be in the apartment. Elena had taken most of what we owned when she moved out, and I had not replaced anything because replacing it meant accepting it was real, and I was not quite there yet. So I went to the bar down the block, and I sat there with a drink I was barely touching, and I just existed for a while. He sat down next to me without asking. I noticed that. Later I would understand that it is part of how they come in. Sitting without asking is a very specific kind of signal, like someone who does not need permission because they are comfortable everywhere. At the time, I just clocked it as a little unusual. He was probably 60, well-dressed but not flashy. The kind of man who looks like he has been places and has nothing left to prove about it. He ordered something, and then he looked at me and he said, not with too much warmth, not with fake concern, just sort of plainly, "You look like someone who has been carrying something for too long." Not "Are you okay?" Not "You seem sad." You look like someone who has been carrying something for too long. That is a different sentence. Carrying something too long means you are strong. It means the problem is time, not you. It does not make you a victim. It makes you someone doing something hard for longer than anyone should have to. And in the state I was in, I felt that difference right away. Even though I could not have explained it. I said, yeah, something like that. He nodded, did not push, let the silence sit. Most people cannot do that. Most people rush to fill silence. He just let it be there. And then after a minute he said, what did you used to do before the thing that changed? Not what happened to you. What did you used to do before the thing that changed? He was pulling me backward to who I was before, not forward from the wreck. That framing, I felt it without knowing why. I started talking. Project management, 11 years, a company I helped build from mid-size to something a lot bigger. I told him more than I planned to because his questions were specific in a way that draws more out of you than you meant to give. He asked what I had been best at, what I had built that I was proudest of, what the work had actually needed from me, at the level where I was genuinely good at it. By the time I had answered those questions, I had said more out loud about what I was actually capable of than I had said in the previous 8 months combined. All those job applications, all those interviews that went nowhere. He had given me back a version of myself I had almost stopped believing in. That is the first move. Give the person their self back before you ask them for anything. Do not ask. Just give it. Let them feel seen in the specific way that people who are struggling are almost never seen. And do it without wanting anything in return. It feels like kindness. It is something else entirely. But when you are where I was, you cannot feel the difference. The warmth is real, even when the intention is not. He put a card on the bar before he left. Plain card, just a name and a number. He said if I ever wanted to pick up the conversation, he would be interested. That he did not run into people with my kind of background very often, and he did not like to let those conversations just end. He did not explain anything, did not sell anything, just left the card and left. I called 4 days later. I want to be honest, it was 4 days and not right away, because I was trying not to seem desperate, which means I was already managing how I looked to someone whose entire job was to read me. Second meeting was dinner, a restaurant I could not have afforded at that point. He paid without making a thing of it, just paid. He brought a woman with him, introduced her by first name only. Composed, 50s, the kind of calm that comes from being in rooms that make other people nervous for long enough that it stopped affecting her. They asked me questions for most of the dinner, not about the divorce or the job loss, about how I thought, about what I saw as the actual problems with organizing people at scale, about what I would do differently if I had real resources behind me. I talked. I could not stop talking. I had not had a conversation like that in months. The way they listened, both of them, the focus of it, the way they held every answer and then asked the next question from inside what I had just said. It felt like finally getting enough air after a long time of just not quite getting enough. Near the end of dinner, the man said, "There is a group of people I would like you to meet. They operate at a level where the things you have been describing become actually solvable." He said they were selective. He said my background was exactly what they were looking for. He said there was nothing required, just a meeting, just come and see. I said yes. I was already yes before he finished the sentence. Probably somewhere around the second question at dinner, I was already yes and did not know it yet. Let me stop here and describe what those 2 meetings actually were, in terms I did not have at the time. Because this part matters more than my story. The pattern matters. The specific sequence of moves. Because they did not develop this for me. They had done it before me. They would do it again after me. And I want to describe it clearly enough that if you are in a bad stretch right now, or someone you care about is, you can recognize it when it shows up. The first move is the observation that looks like empathy but is actually information gathering. Sitting down next to me, saying that one sentence, that was an assessment. My response told him everything he needed to know. Was I open? Was I at the stage where I would take connection from a stranger? My answer? Yeah, something like that. Was the green light. That is all he needed. The second move is the backward pull. Not what happened to you. What were you before the thing that changed? Get the person talking about who they were when they were good at something. This does a few things at once. It gets around the shame that sits on top of the recent losses. It wakes up the person's sense of their own value, and it tells the recruiter exactly what the person is hungry to get back, which is what they will use to build the offer. The third move is the unhurried exit. He did not try to close anything at the bar, left a card and left. That gap, him giving me something and then being gone, created a specific kind of wanting. The 4 days I waited to call were not resistance. They were my attempt to manage how obviously I wanted more of what he had given me. The fourth move is the elevated environment, the restaurant I could not afford. The composed woman who clearly belonged in rooms like that. The quality of the questions. All of that is environmental framing. You are being shown a world that feels better than the one you have been living in, and being made to feel like that world might have room for you. The contrast with where you have been is doing most of the work. They barely need to describe the offer because the environment is already describing it. The fifth move is the no commitment framing. Just a meeting, just come see. This is how every significant commitment starts when the person making it is not ready to see it as significant. By the time the commitments became real, I was already far enough in that pulling back felt like losing something, not like protecting myself. These moves are not unique to this group. Cults use them, scammers use them, extremist recruiters use them. What was different here was the resources behind it and the patience. They are not in a rush. They can wait as long as it takes. Because the state they are targeting does not fix itself fast, and every day you stay in it is another day the approach has a chance to work. The meeting was at a private house in a part of the city I had never been to. When I looked it up later, the address did not appear on any public map. I thought I was misremembering at first. There were 9 other people there when I arrived. All different ages, different industries, different backgrounds on the surface. What they had in common, I learned later. Every single one of them had been in a bad stretch when they were first approached. Every single one had been found at a low point and walked through something close to the same sequence I had been walked through. The gathering was warm, genuinely warm, which is part of what makes this hard to explain to people who were not in it. It was not fake. The conversation was real, the people were interesting, the house was extraordinary. Nobody asked me for anything or pushed anything on me. We just talked. And I felt, for the first time in what felt like a very long time, like I was somewhere that actually had room for me. That feeling is the most dangerous thing they create. Not the promises, not the resources. That feeling of being somewhere there is room for you when everywhere else has been shrinking. I went back because of that feeling. Every time I went back, for months, it was because of that feeling. What would you have done? Over the next few months, things started changing. Real things. They connected me to work, not through job boards, through direct introductions to people who needed exactly what I could do. Within 3 months, I had income again, better income than before. Within 5 months, I had an apartment that felt like mine, not like a place I was camping in. Within 7 months, I was seeing my kids again, regularly, through a mediator the group connected me with, whose approach actually worked in a way nothing else had. These were real results. I want to be clear about that because I think it matters for the story. I am not describing an illusion. I am not describing people who promised things and delivered nothing. They delivered. The job was real, the income was real, the time with my kids was real. And with each real thing came a debt that was never stated out loud. Never a list. Never a conversation where they said, "Here is what you owe us." It was more like gravity. You do not need someone to explain gravity. You just feel yourself orienting toward things in a particular way. I started doing things for them. Small things at first, making introductions, sharing information, attending events and reporting back on conversations I had there. Each ask felt proportionate to what I had received. They gave me this, is it really so much to do that? No, next step. They gave me that too now, is it really so much to do this? No. Each step by itself made sense. The destination you could not see from any single step. 2 years in, I started to see the destination. By then, I had done enough that my options were not simple. There is something about being recruited from a low place that is different from being recruited when you are doing okay. I have known people who were brought in when things were going well for them, offered something bigger, walked in with more of their defenses up. Their experience inside was different from mine in one important way. When you walk in with a working life, job, relationships, sense of yourself, you have something to compare the offer against. You have a before. When they ask you for things, you can weigh what you are giving against what you already had and make some kind of calculation. The calculation might still go wrong, but at least it is a calculation. When you walk in broken, the thing they give you is not something you compare to what you had before. It is what you have now. It is the before. They did not supplement your life, they replaced it. And a replacement is not something you can give back. Leaving was not, for me, a question of going back to what I had before they showed up. What I had before they showed up was a man sitting on a bare floor of an empty apartment. Going back to that was not going home. It was going backward to nothing and then trying to build something on the other side of that nothing with no net. That is the specific thing about being found at your lowest. The help is not a gift on top of your existing life. It is your existing life. And when your existing life is owned by someone else, leaving it is terrifying in a way that is hard to explain to people who still had a life of their own when they got involved. There was a project in my third year. I am going to keep this general because the details are not what matter. I was asked to use access I had built, real access from real work I had actually done, to redirect something in a way that would hurt people who had nothing to do with any of this. Regular people, not a small number of them. The harm was not physical, but it was real, and it was going to land on people who had done nothing wrong. I asked if there was something else I could work on instead. There was not. I said I needed some time. I was given what felt like a measured amount of it. Enough time to show I had thought about it, not enough time to forget that an answer was expected. I thought about it. I thought about my kids, who I was seeing regularly now. I thought about the job and the apartment. I thought about what dismantling all of it would actually look like, and how long it would take, and whether I would come out the other side with anything functional. And then I thought about the people on the other side of the project. I did not know any of them. We'll never know them. But I knew roughly how many there were, and I had a clear enough picture of what the impact would look like. And they had done nothing. Not one of them had done anything to deserve what was about to happen to them. And then I thought about the man at the bar. The sentence about carrying something for too long. How much that sentence had meant to me that Tuesday afternoon. What I understood now about what it actually was. The people on the other side of this project were about to be handed something they did not ask to carry. And someone who knew better than almost anyone how that felt was being asked to put it on them. I said no, clearly, without a lot of extra words around it. What came after was not dramatic, quiet. Things that had been provided started becoming unavailable. The professional connections that had supported the work, the mediator who had helped with my kids. One by one, not all at once, more like a tide going out than a wall coming down. They did not threaten me. They just withdrew. It took about 14 months to get out from under the dependency they had built. 14 months of rebuilding on ground that was actually mine this time. Nothing appeared at the right moment. Nobody made an introduction. It was just work. Plain, grinding, nobody watching out for you work. It was the hardest stretch of the whole experience, and I would choose it again over any of what came before it. One of the things I pieced together while I was still inside was how the targeting actually works. Not all of it. I was not close enough to the center for that, but enough. The man at the bar was not there by accident. He was there because I had been flagged, and the flagging was not mysterious. It was data. The same information that advertising platforms use to figure out who is in what emotional state and what they might respond to. Job loss signals in professional networks, divorce filings in public records, social media activity that shows someone pulling back and going quiet, financial stress patterns. That information can be used to build a profile of someone who is in the specific kind of extended low that makes them recruitable. It is not hard to do if you have the tools and the access to run it. They had both. The man at the bar was one of several people working a targeted area at that time. Not everyone they approached said yes. Probably most people did not, but enough did that the operation was worth running. And the ones who said yes were exactly the right ones. People with real skills, real potential, real things to offer, just at a moment when their defenses were too worn down to clock what was actually being offered to them. I am not saying this to make you paranoid. I am saying it because knowing the mechanism makes it less powerful. If you know someone can smell desperation the same way a tracker reads a trail, you start paying attention to what you are putting out there. Who sees it? Who shows up right after? I said at the beginning that this video is specifically for you if you are going through something hard. I meant that. So let me actually talk to you directly. What you are feeling is real. The fatigue is real. The way the normal warning signals feel like they are running slow is real. The relief of someone who seems to actually see you, to understand what you need without you having to explain it, that relief is real even when the person providing it has an agenda. I am not going to tell you to be suspicious of everyone who is kind to you when you are down. That is not livable, and it is not the right lesson from any of this. People are genuinely kind. Strangers do sometimes show up with something real to offer. What I want you to pay attention to is the pattern, not the individual moment. One act of kindness from a stranger is just kindness. What you are looking for is something more specific. Does this person seem to know things about your situation that you did not tell them? Does what they are offering match your exact vulnerability with a precision that feels almost too good? Is the relationship building fast towards something where you depend on their continued involvement? Are you being encouraged, even gently, even without pressure, to keep this connection quiet from the people who know you? Any one of those things by itself probably has a normal explanation. All of them together is a pattern worth slowing down for. And the other thing I want to say, real help exists. Real communities, real people, real organizations that will give you something without needing to own you for it. The fact that what this group gave me was real and useful does not mean it was clean. Help that comes attached to the most vulnerable parts of your life without telling you it is attached is not help. It is an investment in your dependency. You deserve the kind that does not come with strings you cannot see. It is out there. It is harder to find at the bottom, but it is there. I think about the man at the bar more than I think about anyone else from those years. Not with anger anymore, not really. I have been angry. It did not do much. What I have now is more like a cold understanding of what he was. He was good at what he did. That sentence. You look like someone who has been carrying something for too long. That was not improvised. That was a sentence developed through practice on people exactly like me. He knew what it would do before he said it. He had probably said it 100 times. And somewhere inside all of that, I think he was once someone who got found somewhere low. Because that is how these things keep going. You do not recruit people to do what he did by asking cold. You find them broken. You rebuild them inside the structure. And eventually the structure is their life. And what was done to them was the best thing that ever happened to them. And they believe it completely. And then they go sit down next to someone at a bar on a Tuesday. I do not know if he is still out there. I do not know if he ever sat on the floor of an empty apartment, staring at marks on the wall where things used to be. I hope if he did, someone found him the real way. Watch out for the people around you who are carrying something. Not just because they might need help, because if you do not find them, someone else will. And that someone might not mean them well.